Well, hello and welcome. This is episode 2 of Strike Me Pink. Who would have thought we would have got past week 1, but we have done it. We've done it comfortably as well. We're a few days early. I'm Ben Hook. My co-host is Tom Wren. And Tom, you have a story to tell from the Tea Tree Gully Golf Club and the 13th hole on Saturday afternoon. Just tell us what happened.
Goodness, I feel embarrassed. It's actually embarrassing, Hooky, that I've got 2 hole-in-ones, which I think you do, but you can play. That's the difference.
How long have we got? We'll just, this whole episode can just be about hole-in-ones. We only go for 20 minutes.
Look, the first hole-in-one, to be fair, for those that know it, the 8th hole at Tea Tree Gully, a little downhiller. I think it was about 130, 35. I thinned that one, hit the bank, and sort of triggered up and went in. So that was a very fluky one. This one, to be fair, and it's a one, I'll never play a shot like it again. It was 173. The 13th's also a bit downhill, as you know, Hook here, Tea Tree Gully. But the breeze was into us, so it was worth at least a club. Well, that's what I'm going to say anyway. As time goes on, I'll say 2 or 3.
It'll be three or four clubs
Correct.
by the time, my age.
And I hit a 5-iron, and you know when it happens to you regularly, but me not so much, Hooky, flushed it, and you know when it just goes a mile in the air, and I actually said, hit it, wind, hit it, and it plugged about a foot next to the hole, spun in. But because we're getting older, Hooky, my playing partner, one said Greg Fall and his brother Marty played state cricket at Tea Tree Gully.
Both cricket mates of mine.
And
Greg
good
and
cricketers
Fall.
too.
Yeah,
Greg goes,
very
Rennie, this is how that's in, that is in. And the other bloke said, no, it's gone over the back of the green. And I said, yeah, I reckon it went over the back of the green as well. And then, of course, we went down there and it had gone in. So very fortunate. I'll take it. 2 hole-in-ones. I join you, Hooky, but I've got a feeling you'll get more than me by the time things are said and done.
The only way I'll get more than you is because I potentially play more. You're the hardest working man in South Australian media, and I have cut back profusely. Let's talk about Showdown 60. It was, well, not just a bit of a blowout in the margin, but the result has stunned everyone. I know we're supposed to say, well, showdowns are always a thing of their own, but there were plenty of expert voices, people who know a heck of a lot more about football than me, declaring that this was going to be a romp for the Adelaide Crows, and it turned out to be a comfortable victory for Port Adelaide. What did you make of it?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I think it goes up there, Hooky, with one of the biggest showdown upsets. I reckon 20 years ago, there was a game when Chad Corns played, and it was like Port's grand final, and I think that's the one where he got right in the face of the Crows fans, and it was brilliant for the theatre. That was a huge upset because the Crows, as we know, under Neil Craig at that time were flying, and it disrupted them a bit. The first ever showdown, probably similar. Port not expected to do much, and they won.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think this one, from a Port perspective, I think most people thought 5 to 10 goals. It was 26 points to Port, so it went the other way. And if anything, Hooky, 32 scoring shots to 16, it should have been Port by more. They should have won by 10 goals. For the Crows, and I'll get your thoughts, I think it totally laid bare the issues and deficiencies they have in the middle. They've been so good for the last 3 weeks, but I think it probably shows again they're a good gun midfielder short of challenging when they're beaten. Full credit to them, but Jordan Sweet, Zach Butters, Jason Horne-Francis, they gave them a bath, and other sides are going to look at that, Fremantle, Sydney, Brisbane, that they're going to have to face in the finals, and I think they'll say, there's the blueprint. Just got to bash them up in the midfield, and the Crows have got a lot of work to do there, Hooky, for me.
A couple of things there. So am I right in saying that Jason Horne-Francis and Zach Butters alone had more clearances than the entire Adelaide Football Club?
23 they had, I think, between them, and the Crows as a side had 22, I believe. So those 2 alone beat the Crows in clearances.
Yeah, the other point you made about Jordan Sweet, and we understand with the change in the ruck rules, a good ruckman is really important this year, and it felt like McAndrew really got exposed. Would you be worried about that now for Adelaide heading towards finals?
Yeah, I think so. And McAndrew's I think he's been one of the most improved players, not just at Adelaide, Oogie, but perhaps the competition. But I think his jumping's been amazing, but Sweet was able to grapple him and hold him and get him into what he wanted, which was a wrestle. McAndrew's got to find another way, I think, to use his craft to jump at the boundary throw-in or a clearance around the ground. Because if he can't do that, the big boys, and that's what happened to him on the weekend, he just got monstered. And he's a very good ruckman, but he needs to find another way. So I think the ruck division down there need to work out how can we help you, because otherwise it could be a real bloodbath again for the Crows come September.
Last week I asked you, can we trust the Adelaide Crows? And I think you were pretty confident that we could. Do you stand by that, or are you starting to waver a little bit after a disappointing performance? Yes, it's a one-off performance, but a disappointing performance against a team that they were expected to handle very, very comfortably.
And they've done so much work. The reason I had the trust was those 3 wins were so good, and they won in a different way, Hookie, but they didn't this time. They've lost to a side they were expected to beat, and now they're in this real logjam. I think you've got to still finish top 4 if you're going to genuinely win the flag. Yeah, you can win it from outside. It's happened before. Very rarely, though. I'm worried. It is only 1 game, so I'm prepared to give them a pass to some degree, but I'd want to see significant improvement, and particularly, Hookie, in the midfield. I'm not sure if he's the long-term solution, but Sid Draper maybe. 25 touches last week in the sample. They need a different look. I think if they're relying on Jordan Dawson every week and Peatling and Berry, and to a lesser degree Rankin, who doesn't look like he's right to me, then I think there's some concerns. They need to bat deeper, and they're going to have to find that solution pretty quick.
The problem for Adelaide with that performance is that the one thing they've battled throughout their entire history is that they can get ahead of themselves, that they tend to drink their own bathwater. I don't think that's a reasonable criticism of the current group, but I do think it just underlines the fact that they are still difficult to trust, and it's going to be really hard to believe in them fully. And so it doesn't ruin Adelaide's season. They've got a pretty good draw from here. They go to West Coast this weekend. You expect them to win that one over in Perth. But I just feel like this just underlines why there is just a lack of trust around the Adelaide Football Club, because these are performances that we expect them to be able to do comfortably, and we expect clubs that are in that top 4 bracket to handle comfortably, and to fall, not only to fall short, but to fall so far short of what the mark would be. That'll be a fascinating watch. Just one more on Adelaide. Tom Morris has said that if Adelaide don't win a final this year, Matthew Nicks will become the most under-pressure coach in the league. Is that a fair call?
Yeah, and I think you and I touched on this, didn't we, Hookie, in our episode last week? They have to win a final. And because they are unproven, all of those issues you talk about, trust and belief and, drinking the bathwater, etc., none of that can be put to bed until they win a final. So I think the pass mark for Adelaide this season is winning 1 final. If they don't, I think Matthew Nicks is in real trouble. I think he would know that. I think the players know that. But until they do it they have to get there first. We think they'll get there. It's just what position. But until they win a final, Hookie, I don't think they've alleviated the fan base and probably the belief amongst themselves either.
Does this underline Josh Carr's reputation as a really top-end AFL coach, or is the reality that they're still in 15th more significant?
It's a great question. I think it does. I think the belief and perception out there right now is that he's a very good coach. I think everyone understands they've lost those 5 games by 3 points or less. I think as well, and look, I was in commentary with Double A on the weekend, and Scott Campriale, he said, Stuart Dew, he's the other one. He masterminds that midfield. He's so highly regarded, and the way they set up and the way they dismantled Adelaide. And yes, they had Horne-Francis and Butters, who were both, top class. We know that. But for them to be able to do what they did with what was, you would have to say, a far less talented side, at least on paper.
Below the top 5, definitely.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it enhances his reputation too. So, yeah, I think it goes a long way. Even though they're 5 and 10, I think Josh Carr has enhanced his reputation in these early stages as a coach that's got real potential moving forward at this top level.
I'm happy to make this point now that they've had a win, and I think he's demonstrated he knows how to coach. But I would argue that it doesn't matter how good a coach Josh Carr is. I don't think he was the right person to be coaching the Port Adelaide Football Club in 2026.
Who would you have liked, Hookie?
Well, let me just talk about Josh Carr first of all. At the end of 2025, the Port Adelaide fan base, the club itself, was, I guess, crying out for a refresh after 13 years of Ken Hinkley. Ken had been wonderful for the club, but it was time for a refresh and a change. And to look no further than the next office alongside where Ken Hinkley was working from to find your next coach, I just thought was a myopic view of where they were at. And they are 15th. That is the reality. And I think if a fresh guy had have come in and led them to 15th, the Port Adelaide faithful would understand, yes, we're going through a bit of a period of transition and this is going to take some time. But Josh Carr isn't going to get those sorts of graces as he tries to work his way forward with the Port Adelaide Football Club. His President has already said its finals are a failure, and so he's destined for a failure in his first year. I just feel like whoever Port Adelaide chose, and there are plenty of examples where, a certain type of leader is just not the right person at the right time. And I reckon that Josh Carr was not the right leader at the right time for Port Adelaide. I think they would have been far better off opening up the process. There are a lot of very good coaches out there to look beyond what Josh Carr does offer, which is something significant, but I think there would have been significant options as well, and it would have given them a lot far greater opportunity to reset following the Ken Hinkley era. And that will be a watch for me, how much latitude, how much scope he gets to be able to settle into his own coaching role as things move on, because this could get very tense for him very quickly, in particular with Zach Butters gone as soon as next year.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. I think he will get some more grace because I do think former players or champions of clubs, like James Hird, for example, they do get greater rope when they take on a coaching job because people go, you've got to give him time. But perhaps you also make a point, because he is who he is and he's been in the system, people expect success quickly. I do think, though, if we were just to look at this season so far, on the balance of the matches they've played in and the style of football they've played, me at least anyway, I've been impressed. I think you're right. I loved Ken Hinkley. I got on with him well. I thought he squeezed the lemon as much as he possibly could. I know they didn't make a grand final, but Jigo close a couple of times, the one against Richmond. It was time for a change, though. And I think given all of that and where the list is at, I think Josh has done a pretty good job so far.
I'd love to talk to you about the AFL rules debacle and the ARC and all of those sorts of things, but we are starting to already get tight for time, and I will rely on the fact that the AFL will make another complete cock-up in the coming weeks and months that we'll get another opportunity to talk about. Let's turn our attention to the World Cup.
Yes.
The Socceroos are through to the round of 32. They're going to take on Egypt in the early hours of Saturday morning. I think we all said a pass mark would be to get out of the group, but what's a pass mark now?
Well, I think they can beat Egypt. I know there's a lot of doubt about Mo Salah and, whether he plays it. Look, he's world class. He's one of the best players in the last.
But he's not the player he once was, is he?
Totally. Yep. And he's well into his 30s now, and they will sort of put everything into him. And he hasn't got a side around him like when he's been playing at Liverpool. He doesn't have the class that can feed him or the other options that can, deflect a bit of the attention away. I think the Socceroos should be aiming to win this game. I mean, we have seen some big upsets already in the knockout stages, Morocco, penalty shootout, Paraguay. I just hope, Hookie, that whatever happens with the Socceroos, if it gets to the 75th minute, into extra time, I would rather the Socceroos push for a win and risk losing late in the game, stoppage time, in extra time, rather than just meander towards penalties and have a coin flip of a penalty shootout. That's just me. I think risk losing in order to try and win and back ourselves in. We can beat Egypt, so let's beat them. And let's beat them fair and square, because I think talent-wise we've got them just about covered. Let's do that rather than say, no, let's be conservative, sit back, and if we get to penalties, great result, and then back ourselves in from there. No, I think we can aim higher than that and be better than that.
Love it, Reddy. That's exactly what I wanted to hear from someone who knows a heck of a lot more about football than me, and let's hope Australia really chase that victory when we all get up very, very early on Saturday morning. Talk about massive matches on Saturday. The Adelaide Thunderbirds, as we confirmed last week, are through to the Super Netball Grand Final. We know they're going to take on the Melbourne Vixens. That will be in Melbourne at the John Cain Arena with a deal that's been done between the Victorian Government and Netball Australia. So it's probably the worst possible scenario for the Adelaide Thunderbirds to be the first team into a grand final, but we're going to be playing in front of an away crowd. Does that have an adverse effect on how you think this result will play out?
Look, it has to be worth something. I mean, home crowd, but they're the best team, Hookie, aren't they? They'd be the first ever to go through a season and lose only the one game. I think they can win. Clearly, Melbourne are very good. They had a great win against the Fever last week. But I think the way Shamira Sterling's playing at the moment and marshalling everything, in the backcourt.
Yeah.
Elmari Vandenberg she's been just sensational. So I think the Thunderbirds still probably slight favourites, but there's no doubt. If it was played here in Adelaide, the Thunderbirds would probably be 6-7 goal favourites. I think it's probably 1 or 2 if you're creating a line. I think it's a lot closer. But they've done it before, Hookie, so that gives me a lot of confidence that they can do it again. And with Sterling in that team, I just think she's world class. I think they're every chance to do it again. You know, what do you think?
Finished 13-1 this year, so won 3 more games than any other team in the competition, scored more goals than any other team in the competition, defended lower scores than any other team in the competition. So the best aggregate and the best aggregate against. That is quite remarkable. Elmir van den Berg, who you've identified, 708 goals for the year, more than anyone else. Georgie Horgis, more goal assists than anyone else. Latanya Wilson, more intercepts than anyone else. Shamira Sterling-Humphrey, more rebounds than anyone else. This is the team to do it. If they can produce the strangle like they strangled the Vixens in the second semi-final, then this is going to be a pretty comfortable victory for them. They do have some threats, though, the Melbourne Vixens. So, Kira Austin and Sophie Garben are expected to start as their 2 shooters. They're Australian shooters, and that's unusual in the Super Netball competition. Normally we see a South African like Elberg or a Jamaican like Romelda Aiken-George as the dominant goal shooter. So that's unusual. But what they can do, in particular Kira Austin and coming off the bench Lily Harris, is shoot the super goals, the double goal in the last 5 minutes of every quarter. And so, look, if they can stay with Adelaide for the first 10 minutes of every quarter and then pull out a big night with super shots, that is the biggest threat to Adelaide. I do think that it's really important that Lauren Frew has a good game for Adelaide as a goal attack. She's got to be another offensive scoring threat, and Elmir van den Berg can't afford to carry it herself, because I do like Georgie Horgis and the creativity she displays at wing attack rather than having to go and be the second shooter at goal attack. But gee, you'd love to be on Adelaide, wouldn't you? They're just such a complete side. They know each other inside out. They're so expertly coached by Tanya Robbs. I expect them to win this by about 5 or 6 goals.
Yeah, and we don't go down the sort of 2-point super shots as much, do we? So you're right, probably have to get that buffer, and then, Melbourne have to chase the game a bit more, take on that risk. And if they miss a couple, we get the rebounds, go down the other end and score. It makes it doubly difficult. The other one too, which is really important, Kate Maloney, clearly their captain, mid-quarter, very good player. Look, they've got threats, like you said. The 2 shooters are a top draw if they're playing for Australia. That says enough. But you're right. If they play this game 10 times, Hookie, I think the T-Birds probably win 7, maybe 8. So confident, not fully, backing them in and saying they've got to absolutely do it, but as confident as you can be in a grand final.
And you talked about Kate Maloney, but Kate Heffernan's going to play in the centre for Adelaide, and she is, just such a star as well. So if the defensive trio holds up, I just do not see a way through for the Vixens, and it'll be the 3rd Adelaide premiership in 4 years. Very quickly, Ben Stokes has retired in the middle of a test match, in the middle of a day's play. It was one of the most remarkable scenes. He said that he lost the will to fight following the Ashes defeat, and I can only reflect back to an old Tea Tree Gully buddy of yours, Travis Head, who completely turned that series around in day 2 of the opening test match in Perth, when he went out and opened the batting for an injured Usman Khawaja and produced one of the epic centuries we've ever seen in Ashes cricket. Do you think maybe that it was in a weird sort of a way, because they were ahead in that test match for a long way, England, that Travis Head was almost responsible for the fate that has befallen the captain of the English cricket team?
I think it's a bit of that, Hookie. He's also 35, but I think it's just the mental fatigue of, the media, the expectation, perhaps not feeling loved and fully embraced by administration. I think it's all of that. And I reckon he's just going, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. I've done what I need to do. He's a bizarre cricketer, Ben Stokes, on his day, and we saw, the match at Headingley. I think for me, the most enigmatic, his best electrifying total match winner, but didn't see it that consistently, did we? And maybe that's being a bit harsh, but his absolute best was unstoppable.
Yeah.
But the difference between his best and worst, there was a fair gap there, I think. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it is fair, because at his best, he was Botham-like, He gave England 12 players. He was a wonderful bowler. He was a great leader, and he was just a brilliant batter who could turn games around single-handedly, and a scrapper,
Yeah.
And I will never forget that innings he played at Headingley in 2019. It was one of the great innings. He was on the way towards a similar innings at Lords as well in 2023, and the whole stumping gate of Johnny Bairstow, which is another great story. And my relationship to Alex Carey and over that we will save for another time. I'll send that down the pike, Tommy, and we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, he's going to be missed. Having said that, Tom, would it shock you if we saw a return to cricket in 2027, just ahead of the 2027 Ashes series?
Just thinking that he will absolutely. I reckon. Let's timestamp this, I think he will definitely be back and he will be in that Ashes squad when it comes around. This will just take all the pressure out and then bang, there's an inspirational comeback story coming.
Wouldn't shock me. Let's wrap it up with Hookie's local sport minute. Hey, do you remember
Yes.
a TV show from, I reckon it was about 12 years ago now, called The Recruit?
Yes.
Do you remember who won it? Now, this is without notice here.
No.
I can see you thinking about it.
This is a football
Yes,
program?
basically whoever won The Recruit went on to a Category B
rookie.
list.
Yeah.
And it was won by a lad from Port Lincoln called Johan Wagner. I don't know
That's
if you remember
right.
that
I do
name.
remember the name. Yeah.
He then had an opportunity to go on to an AFL list. He chose Port Adelaide over Gold Coast and
That's
GWS.
right.
They were the three that offered him the spot. He never played a game and was delisted at the end of that year. Came from Tasman Football Club in Port Lincoln. He's now the senior coach of the Lincoln South Football Club. Kicked 11 against Boston on the weekend and has kicked his 800th goal in his career. So a bit of a blast from the past, still getting it done in footy, Tom. I thought you might appreciate
That's
that one.
a
And I've
great
got
story.
one other that I want to share with you that you'll really appreciate, because this will mean a fair bit to you. Just tell us a little bit about on Anzac Day what you do at around about dawn.
So at the Rosewater Footy Club, they
Yes.
partner up with the local RSL there. There's just a little civic service. About 200 or 300 people come along. So I played the trumpet, the bugle, the last post, and the reveille. And I've done that probably for about 30 years now, Hookie, because my great uncle served in World War II. They
Yep.
used to have to play it on a tape machine. And so they knew I was playing the trumpet. They said, could you do it? Now he's since passed away. God bless his soul. But I've just continued to do it. So yeah, love it. It's a really nice, tight-knit community that comes out each year.
As you would well know, the Rosewater Football Club has had some challenges across the last
Yes.
decade, most notably that when one of their players, and we don't need to go over the ground, but one of their players struck an umpire. He was deregistered from the league. The club was fined. He got a 20-year suspension. That then led to, I guess, the players feeling a bit disenfranchised by the league, and had a photo with all of them holding up the bird together, and offence was taken by the league over that as well. And look, you and I are great friends of the people at the Adelaide Footy League and would support them to the hilt with all of those sorts of things. There were some challenges around junior games. So it was a really rough time for the Rosewater Football Club. But I wanted to share with you this letter that was written to them only this week. Dear Rosewater Football Club, and there's a photo attached to this, you will see many Guernseys you recognise in the below photo. We are the Freegon Bulldogs of the APY Lands Football League, the most remote football competition in Australia. Unfortunately, we did not have a team manager for our past Guernseys, and almost all had gone missing. This left us playing numerous games last season with most of our team in everyday clothes. Rosewater Football Club came to the rescue and have been extremely kind in donating old Guernseys for our team, allowing us to look and feel like the mighty Bulldogs once again. We just played the top team in Fink after taking this photo, and we ran out winners by 40 points. We are now pushing for our first finals berth in 3 seasons. So the Rosewater Football Club, that copped its fair share of whacks a decade ago, doesn't take much to turn yourself around, does it? And they have turned themselves around.
That's
and I just
great.
wanted to give them some real recognition for what they are doing for no reward for, a group of people that would face some really serious challenges up there in the APY lands and Rosewater's provide.
That's what community sport's all about, isn't it, Hookie? Just, banding together, spirit, all of those things that we love. That's what it's all about. That's fantastic.
I've run us way over time, mate, by about 4 minutes. Always great to chat to you. Always love your expertise and your insight. We'll do it all again next week.
Can't wait, Hookie. You're a good man. See you next week.
See you, Rennie.